Okay, welcome back. Today we're going to start a new series I'm calling the Complete RBT Guide. And in this series, I'm going to be doing long form videos on some of the major terms and major items that you need to know as an RBT to both pass your exam, pass your competency, and help you be a better RBT in the field. Okay, so these videos are going to include terms, definitions, questions. Okay, and they're going to be comprehensive, they're going to be complete, so they're going to be long and very dense with a lot of information. Okay, I'm going to put all the timestamps below so you can jump around to what you need, or you can watch the whole thing and try to answer the questions as you go. It's up to you. But today I'll be covering reinforcement and punishment. Okay, if there's something specific you'd like me to cover, leave a comment below and I'll try to get to it. Okay, other than that, I'm just going to go in order of what I think is most important to start with as an RBT. And as an RBT, I think other than functions, okay, most important thing to understand is reinforcement and punishment. These are all principles of behavior change other than extinction and what you're going to be operating with and implementing with, okay, the majority of your time. Okay, so if you can understand reinforcement, you can understand punishment, you can start to understand, okay, the other major things that go along with being an RBT and practicing ABA. So I hope you enjoy it. Leave me a comment below. Let me know how you feel. As always, if you need our study materials, you can find them at our website. Okay, they're also available from these links, which I'll put in the comments and descriptions below. Keep studying hard. Okay, if you're preparing for your test, it's a long journey. It's worth it. Keep working hard. Okay, so let's get into it. All right, so overview of reinforcement and punishment. Okay, first things first, reinforcement and punishment affect future behavior. Okay, reinforcement and punishment are consequences, therefore, they affect future behavior. So, what happens in the future is affected. Okay, so looking at this chart, we can see what happens to our behavior. It's either going to increase or decrease. Okay, what changes? Well, when you add or increase a stimulus, okay, it's positive. Positive means add or increase. And if the behavior increases, it's positive reinforcement. If the behavior decreases, it's positive punishment. So in this case, you're adding or increasing a stimulus, okay, which is decreasing the behavior, therefore it's positive punishment. Now the opposite of true when you remove or decrease a stimulus. That's negative, okay? Negative means remove or decrease when we're talking about ABA. So you really need to start to unlearn what you think you know about positive and negative reinforcement. Okay. Because when we use the word positive and we use the word negative, we're not talking about good or bad. We're talking about what's happening with the stimulus. Are you adding or are you removing? If you're adding, that's positive. If you're removing, that's negative. And again, if the behavior increases, reinforcement. If it decreases, punishment. This is a great chart. If you know this chart, okay, you'll never miss another reinforcement and punishment question, okay? It's as straightforward as this. So understand this chart, okay, and then start to dive into more complex questions and ideas behind reinforcement and punishment. So, what is reinforcement? Reinforcement increases or maintains future behavior. Keyword increase, keyword maintains, and then future behavior. Okay, it's a consequence, right? It follows a behavior that increases that behavior in the future. Okay, whenever you think reinforcement, think increase. Okay, reinforcement can be automatic or it can be socially mediated. Automatic means reinforcement is occurring with only yourself present. Okay, nobody, there's no peer, there's no adult, there's nobody delivering reinforcement. Okay, it's automatic, it's self delivered. Okay, socially mediated, okay, is more common where if you're an RBT, you're delivering reinforcement, that's socially mediated. If a teacher's delivering reinforcement, that's socially mediated. So if reinforcement is delivered by another person or another party, that's socially mediated. It creates stimulus control or differential reinforcement. So if you've watched my other videos, you should be familiar with differential reinforcement, or if you've been studying, okay? And this is how we create that stimulus control. because we reinforce behavior, okay, in the presence of one stimulus, and we don't reinforce in the presence of other. In the future, one stimulus, okay, will evoke that behavior and the other will not, okay? This is the idea behind differential reinforcement. And then the immediacy of the reinforcer is important. You deliver reinforcement as soon as possible, okay? Ideally between 0 and 60 seconds of the behavior occurring. The closer you deliver reinforcement to the actual behavior, the more powerful it is. The longer you wait, okay, the less powerful it is. Why is that? Well, if you wait 10 seconds to deliver reinforcement for the target behavior, a lot can occur in those 10 seconds, and you might be inadvertently reinforcing something else. So immediacy is important. You want to deliver reinforcement as quick and as close to the target behavior as possible. So question, while you're taking a shower, the water becomes too hot. You turn the handle to decrease the temperature. What type of reinforcement is this? Okay. Is it automatic? Is it socially mediated? Is it peer delivered? Or is it immediacy? Well, what do we know, okay, about socially mediated reinforcement? Socially mediated reinforcement is delivered by an outside party, okay, or another person, okay? So peer delivered would be socially mediated. So B and C would technically be the same thing. Now on this question, is there anybody else with you? Or are you the one alone, okay, changing that water temperature? Since you're alone, okay, and you're delivering the reinforcement and creating the reinforcement, okay, this is automatic, right? What is immediacy? Okay, it's how close to the target behavior we're delivering the reinforcement, but we're not talking about how closely reinforcement was delivered, okay? We're talking about what type of reinforcement is occurring. And in this case, it's automatic. Consequences like reinforcement affect blank behavior, okay? So what behavior is affected by reinforcement, by punishment, by consequences? Are we talking about past behavior? Are we talking about current behavior? Are we talking about future behavior? Or are we talking about current and future? Well, past behavior, okay, can't be changed, right? It's already happened. So past behavior is unaffected. Current behavior, okay, is the consequence follows the current behavior, okay? But since the consequence comes after the current behavior, that behavior already happened, right? So we can't change that current behavior, okay? The only behavior we can impact is future behavior. Past behavior has already happened, can't be changed. The consequence follows the current behavior, so that behavior is finished once the consequence is delivered, so we can't change that behavior. But with reinforcement and with punishment, we have an influence over future behavior. So consequences affect future behavior. Okay, what is punishment? Okay, reinforcement and punishment are very similar, right? They're cut from the same cloth, okay? But at the same time, they're very different. But once you understand the two, okay, it becomes very easy to remember. So what is different? Well, punishment decreases the future frequency of behavior. What did reinforcement do? Reinforcement increased. Punishment decreases. Again, can be automatic or socially mediated, okay? Punishment is defined by the function, not the topography. Now, what does that mean? That means a punishment must have an effect on behavior, and that effect must be a decrease. If you're delivering a stimulus or a consequence and it's not decreasing that behavior, you're not delivering punishment. This is very important, okay? Because traditionally, we think of timeouts and verbal reprimands and spankings as all traditional punishments. What really defines a punishment is the effect on behavior. If you're sending a kid to timeout and the behavior isn't changing, that isn't punishment, okay? Punishment is defined by function. Threats are not punishment. If you're going to punish, deliver the punishment. Don't threaten the punishment, okay? Deliver the punishment. And then reinforcement always trumps punishment. It always comes before punishment, okay? Why? Punishment isn't permanent. If you stop punishment, There's something called recovery from punishment, and that behavior is going to reoccur. Okay. Punishment isn't permanent. You always want to reinforce because reinforcement teaches the correct behavior. Okay. Punishment only decreases the wrong behavior. Okay. Every time your little brother spits on the table, your mom scolds him and sends him to timeout. Your brother is now starting to spit on the ground as well. It's time out of punishment. So let's think what's happening in this scenario. You're sitting at the table and your brother spits. Your mom sends him to timeout. Okay. Tomorrow, okay, or the next day, your brother now spits on the ground as well. So now he's spitting everywhere. What's happening to the behavior in this situation? It is time out of punishment. Let's see. Yes, timeout functions as a punishment. What's happening to that behavior? It's actually increasing, right? So if anything, it's reinforcement, okay? But it's definitely not functioning as a punishment. B, yes, we know from our learning history that timeout is always a punishment. Well, no, we just talked about it. Just because traditionally we've been taught that timeout is a punishment, and yes, timeout can function as a punishment, is timeout always a punishment? No, because as we see in this scenario, if anything, timeout is acting as a reinforcer, okay? Because your brother's getting all this attention and he's getting up and getting out of whatever he's doing, et cetera, okay? So B is wrong. C, no, spitting has not decreased. C is the right answer, okay? Why is timeout not a punishment here? Well, exactly what it says. Spitting hasn't decreased. If the behavior isn't decreasing, it's not a punishment. And then D, no, and timeout should never be used. No, timeout is a empirically validated intervention, okay? It has its place, it has its time, right? But it needs to be part of a bigger treatment plan, and it needs to have the desired effect on the behavior. In this case, the desired effect is not happening. You're actually doing the opposite, increasing the undesirable behavior. So C, spitting has not decreased. All right, so we now know reinforcement increases, punishment decreases. So let's get into those words, positive and negative, okay? This is where people get tripped up. What does positive mean? Positive means addition or presentation, okay? When behavior is followed by the addition or presentation of a stimulus. And then what is reinforcement? Increases the future frequency of that behavior. To break it down, positive add, reinforcement increase. You're adding something to increase the behavior. That's positive reinforcement. Example, you continue to go to work because when you go to work, you're given a check every 2 weeks, right? So since you're given a check, you going to work is maintained and even increased, okay? So that's positive reinforcement, stimulus being added, okay? That's changing the future frequency of that behavior, maintaining or increasing it. What is negative reinforcement? Well, same thing, right? What does negative mean? When behavior is followed by the removal or reduction. What is reinforcement? Increases the future frequency of the behavior. Put it together, negative remove, reinforce increase. So you're removing something to increase behavior, okay? Negative reinforcement is escape, avoidance, okay? You're getting away from an aversive, okay? So you're removing that aversive and increasing that escape and avoidance. That's why when you present a worksheet to a student and they rip it up and then they don't have to do work, okay? In the future, they continue to rip up the paper because they've been negatively reinforced. The demand was removed and they got out of doing work. That reinforced them, so it increases the escape behavior in the future. Another example, every time the new Taylor Swift song comes on the radio, you change the channel. What are you doing? Okay. You're removing that aversive. You're removing the song, okay? In the future, right? You're going to change the channel when you hear a song you don't like. So your behavior is increasing as the result of the removal of a stimulus. What is positive punishment? When behavior is followed by the addition, right? Positive punishment decreases the future frequency of that behavior. Put it together, positive addition, punishment decrease. You add something to decrease the behavior. So you can see how similar but how different punishment and reinforcement is, okay? Notice how positive doesn't change in either scenario. Positive always means addition, okay? And you'll see negative always means subtraction or removal, okay? Example, your cat used to climb up your curtains until you started to spray it with a water bottle. Now your cat no longer climbs the curtains. Well, why? Because you added the spray, right? Now, every time they climb up, okay, you hit them with the water bottle, the consequence, okay? And in the future, they no longer climb. So the addition of the spray in the water bottle decreases your cat climbing your curtains. Positive punishment. What is negative punishment? You should be able to get this one now. Just break it down. Negative means what? Removal. Punishment means what? Decreases. You're removing something to decrease behavior. It's really that simple, okay? You don't need to make it more complicated than that because it's not. It's really that simple, okay? Example, during the second quarter of a basketball game, Timmy commits a foul before the opponent crossed half court. Timmy's immediately taken out of the game. Timmy no longer commits fouls before the opponent crosses half court, okay? So what happened here? Timmy commits a foul. He's removed from the game. Essentially, technically put in timeout, right? He's put in timeout from the game, okay? So Timmy no longer commits the foul. So you removed all that positive reinforcement, all that playing time, okay? And in the future, Timmy no longer commits that foul. So the behavior of committing the foul before the opponent crosses half court decreased. Negative punishment. All right, let's do a couple questions, okay? If you're still confused, I hope you're not. Go back to that chart, okay? But just break it down in your head. Positive add, negative remove. Reinforcement, increase, punishment, decrease. If you remember that, okay, you'll never miss these questions. All right, so question. Your friend just turned 30 and you went out to celebrate their birthday. You drank 5 margaritas and did 4 tequila shots. Next morning, you wake up and your head is pounding. You take 2 Advil and the headache goes away. What occurred after taking the Advil? So what is this process, right? What happens? So after you took the Advil, the headache went away, okay? So what happened, okay? Was it positive reinforcement? Was it negative reinforcement? Was it positive punishment? Or was it negative punishment, okay? Now, this question's kind of phrased funny. There's a lot going on, right? Don't get confused on the test, okay? Because they're going to throw all this stuff at you and word it funny to try to confuse you. Just remember your principles, okay? Remember the basics, okay? What happened? Your behavior, you took Advil, the consequence, the headache went away. Okay, in the future, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to take Advil. So is your behavior increasing or decreasing? Your behavior is increasing. Why? Was something added or was something taken away? Well, the headache went away, right? Therefore, what happened? Negative, remove, reinforcement. Okay, your behavior increases. So the answer is negative reinforcement. Now, be very careful with this because you'll say, well, wait, we added the Advil, right? No, remember, reinforcement and punishment are consequences. Taking the Advil is the behavior. The consequence is the removal of the headache. Okay, so be very careful here, right? Taking Advil, behavior, consequence, removal of headache. In the future, you take more Advil, okay? So removal, behavior, increase. You're working with a client on discriminating between shapes. Each time your client gets an answer correct, he earns a token. When your client elopes from the table, you take a token away. What are you attempting when your client elopes from the table? So again, long question. What are they asking? Okay, they're asking about what you're doing when the client elopes. Are you doing positive reinforcement, positive punishment, negative punishment? Notice they're asking, what are you attempting, right? Because we're not sure what's happening on the behavior, but what are you trying to do? Well, if you're taking away, okay, you're taking away a token, right? So every time they elope, you take a token away, okay? So immediately you know what? It's negative, right? Behavior is eloping, consequence taken away. You immediately know it's going to be either negative reinforcement or negative punishment. Well, do you want your client to continue to elope, or do you want to decrease eloping? Well, eloping, right, is running away, right? It's avoidance. So ideally, you'd want that to decrease. Okay. So what are you attempting? Well, you're taking something away, so negative, right? And then you want the behavior to decrease. So you're attempting negative punishment. Okay. All right. Yesterday, you were stung by a mosquito on the arm. Every time the bug bite itches, you scratch it to stop the itching. What is this called? So you get stung by the mosquito, bug bite itches, you scratch it, itching goes away. Okay. Every time it itches, you continue to scratch it. Okay. So what is happening here? Is it positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, or negative punishment? Let's break it down. Okay. What are you doing? Okay. So antecedent, bug bite itches, behavior, scratch, consequence, itching stops. Okay. So itching stops. Is the itching being added or is it being removed? The itching is being removed, right? What is removed? Negative. Okay. Every time it itches, you do it. So is your behavior increasing or is it decreasing? Your behavior's increasing. So remove increase is what? Negative reinforcement. Okay. Similar to that Advil question, right? People want to get confused and think, well, I'm scratching, right? I'm adding the scratch. No, behavior is scratching. You're removing the itch. Okay. So you got to think about what's the consequence here, right? What is the consequence of the behavior? Okay. What's going to affect the behavior in the future? And that is the stopping of the itch. Finally, conditioned versus unconditioned. Okay. So we have two types of reinforcement and punishment. Reinforcement and punishment can be conditioned, where there's learning history. Okay, you have to pair stimulus to stimulus, right? That's tokens and money. Those things don't have value to us, okay, until we learn they have value. Okay, same thing as verbal reprimands, right? If they're functioning as punishment, right? We have to learn that a verbal reprimand is a punishment. Okay, so these are conditioned. Unconditioned reinforcement and punishment. There's no learning history or pairing required. Okay, we're innately inborn, okay, with these as reinforcement and punishers. So sleep, water, food, given a long enough time, will function as a reinforcer. Okay. Same as very hot temperature. Okay. Will, will function as a punishment with no learning history. And we're talking extreme temperatures, right? With no learning history, an extreme temperature will function as a punisher. Okay. So that's reinforcement. That's punishment. Simple as that. Okay. Go over this a few times until you really start to understand the difference, right? And what each means on a fundamental level, right? It's all about what is happening to the behavior. Is that behavior increasing? Is that behavior decreasing? Okay. And then are you adding anything or is anything being taken away? Okay. So I hope that's helpful, right? I'll continue doing these. If you have any requests, please leave a comment below. Okay. Get the study materials, continue working hard. It's going to pay off. Okay. Um, any questions, as always, let me know. Until next time, until Wednesday, study hard.